All right. Shalom, family. It's your brother Kanaiba coming at you once again. And welcome back to part 3 of Travis Scott's Sacrifice into Another World. So if you haven't already watched part 1 and part 2, I suggest you go back and watch those 2 videos before watching part 3, okay? Because if you don't, I guarantee you're not going to understand what I'm talking about in part 3, okay? So, with that being said, I believe in part 2, I left you with a cliffhanger. And I told you that we're going to get into what the actual day of November the 5th represents, okay? Because we talked about Samhain and how, according to my critique, I believe this whole thing was ritualistic, okay? And, centered around that particular, pagan festival, okay? But now we're going to show the significance of the actual day of November the 5th. Because, of course, November the 4th, you had what was known as a lunar Samhain, okay? So now, let's get some information on the day of November the 5th and the significance behind it, okay? All right, so with a little bit of digging and trying to find, information on November the 5th, this is what I ran into, okay? And this is called Guy Fawkes Night, okay? And let's get a little bit of information on this night called Guy Fawkes Night, okay? And it reads, Guy Fawkes Night, also known as Guy Fawkes Day, Bonfire Night, and Fireworks Night, is an annual commemoration observed on November the 5th, primarily in Great Britain, involving bonfires and fireworks displays. Okay? So we see this particular day is celebrated on the 5th of November. Okay? Now, again, I see the naysayers saying, well, Kanaiba, that's celebrated primarily in Great Britain. Okay, we in America, Don't worry. We coming back to America. Just give me a minute, okay? But anyway, continuing on, and it reads, its history begins with the events of November the 5th, 1605 OS, when Guy Fawkes, a member of the Gunpowder Plot, was arrested while guarding explosives the plotters had placed beneath the House of Lords. The Catholic plotters had intended to assassinate Protestant King James I and his parliament. Okay? Now, of course, us being Hebrew Israelites, okay, you brothers that's in the truth, you should already be, privy as to who King James is. I'm sure all of us has a King James Bible, okay? King James Version Bible, okay? But again, what this is going into is the day of November the 5th, there was an attempt on King James's life, okay? And I think throughout his whole life, there was about 8 attempts on his life. And this is just one of them, okay? But anyway, continuing on, it reads, celebrating that the king had survived, people lit bonfires around London, and months later, the observance of the 5th of November Act enforced an annual public day of Thanksgiving for the plot's failure. Okay? So this is very interesting stuff. But people will still ask, okay, well, what does this have to do with the Travis Scott concert that happened on November the 5th? Okay? Well, let's scroll down and let's get some more information. Okay? So scrolling down a bit here, and it reads, settlers exported Guy Fawkes Night to overseas colonies, including some in North America. See that? I told y'all we was coming to America. But anyway, it reads, where it was known as Pope Day. Uh-oh. Let's continue on. Let's continue on before I even get to that. And it says those festivities died out with the onset of the American Revolution. Claims that Guy Fawkes Night was a Protestant replacement for older customs such as Samhain are disputed, as England had no contemporary history of bonfires. I call BS. I would be more inclined to say that this particular day is definitely associated with Samhain. Okay? So now that we've brought it back to America, the day of November the 5th in America is known as Pope Day, or as we're about to find out, it's known as Pope's Night. Okay, so now let's get some information on that. All right, so here is the information on Pope Night, and it reads: Pope Night, also called Pope's Night, Pope Day, or Pope's Day, was an anti-Catholic holiday celebrated annually on November 5th in the colonial United States. It evolved from the British Guy Fawkes Night, which commemorates the failure of the gunpowder plot of 1605. Pope Night was most popular in the seaport towns of New England, especially in Boston, where it was an occasion for drinking, rioting, and anti-elite protests by the working class. Okay, let's pause there for a minute. Okay? And it's just strange that this night was associated with rioting, in which we know is something that Travis Scott's concerts are famous for. Okay? I think the correct term is raging. Okay? But anyway, now let's scroll down a bit. And would you take a look at this? Look at the section that says related to, meaning the November the 5th, Pope's Night is related to, of course, Guy Fawkes Night. And would you look at here? It's also related to Halloween. Uh-oh. And we know Halloween, of course, is related to Samhain, that particular festival. Okay? So now, having said all that, let's go back to Halloween of this year. And let's take a look at something. Because Travis Scott's girlfriend, Kylie Jenner, she actually posted some family photos on Instagram. Okay? On the day of Halloween, right? And let's take a look at something here, all right? Okay, so this is a photo of Travis Scott, Kylie Jenner, and their daughter on Halloween. And what's interesting is the mask that Travis Scott has on. Of course, it's a mask of Michael Myers, okay? So is there some type of message that's being sent here, okay? Because I know a lot of people are thinking, well, you know, that's a popular mask, especially around Halloween, right? But again, what does Michael Myers represent? Of course, he represents death or killing, right? But of course, we got to go deeper than that. But anyway, let's continue. Let's look at the next picture. And of course, this is a photo of Travis Scott with the same mask on, along with his daughter. Now, just as a quick side note, not to digress too much, but notice how they have their daughter dressed up as a mermaid, okay, with the seashells. That's because that represents the so-called goddess Aphrodite, okay? That's what they're venerating here. And they're pretty much, molding their child to be a mother goddess figure, okay? This is in veneration of Aphrodite, okay? That's why also they made sure she was holding a doll in her hand with red hair. in this particular photo, okay? Because again, oftentimes, or most of the time, Aphrodite is depicted with red hair, okay? So that's what that's going into. But again, let's put the focus back on Travis Scott. Again, he has on this Michael Myers mask, okay? Which is very significant, but we're going to get more into that in just a moment. But let's move on to the next photo, okay? So now we have Kylie Jenner on the photo with her mother. Now, why is this significant? Because on the day of November the 5th, at the same time of the concert, Kylie Jenner's mother had a birthday, and it was her 66th birthday, okay? And as we know, birthdays rank very, very high in Satanism, okay? But the fact that it was her 66th birthday, actually, it is very telling, okay? Now, again, 66, you could say, is also a master number. It's a double number, okay? And it's really a multiple of 11. It's just 11 6 times, okay? And the number 66 also is the number that represents the so-called bull god Molech or Baal, okay? But now let's look at something else, because if you look at the heading under the photo, okay? Look at what Kylie Jenner says. She says, in full mommy mode this Halloween, okay? With a picture of a black cat, okay? And it looks as if both her and her mother are dressed up as black cats. Her mother is holding the purse of a black cat, right? Again, not to digress too much, but what's going on is they are playing the role of the moon goddess, Selene, okay? And now the moon goddess is actually represented by a triple goddess archetype, okay? And that's what her mother, and her daughter is representing, okay? The triple goddess archetype, of course, is the old crone, which would be played by her mother. The mother, which would be played by Kylie Jenner herself. And the young maiden would be actually played by her daughter. Okay, so that's what's going on here. And that's just my critique. Okay? So now that we've touched on this information, could this Halloween mask of Michael Myers actually have anything to do with November the 5th and everything that transpired that night? Okay? Well, let's actually go to the movie Halloween from back in, I believe, the 1980s. Okay, we're going to go to part 2 because there's a specific scene that actually gives a bit more context to what I've been saying. Okay, so let's take a look. All right.
Here. Look over here. And here. Sister.
Is that it?
No. Here.
What's this?
It's gibberish. No. It's a Celtic word. Samhain. It means the Lord of the Dead. The end of summer. The festival of Samhain. October 31st.
Okay, so as we see here, it is no denying that Michael Myers is associated with Samhain. Okay, hence the movie is called Halloween. Okay, so with that being said, like I said before, I believe there's a reason that he wore the Michael Myers mask on Halloween. Okay, I believe this was predictive programming or a prelude as to what was going to happen at his concert on November the 5th. Okay, so now let's put some focus back on the Pope. Okay, because as we know, November the 5th is known as Pope's Night. And as we see, Pope's Night is related to Halloween. So it would behoove us to find out what the Pope was doing on November the 5th. Okay, so let's take a look at something. All right, so this is Vatican News. Okay, the site Vatican News. And it reads, Vatican News, the master of the liturgical celebrations of the Supreme Pontiff, MONS period. I don't know what that abbreviation is, but it says Diego Giovanni Ravelli on Friday released the schedule of the celebrations of Pope Francis for the month of November. There are 3 main liturgical celebrations of the Pope for the coming month. And I say it like that because the Pope is not the Holy Father. Okay, it's nothing holy about him. Okay, if you didn't know, the Pope happens to be the devil. Okay, and we're about to see that when we look at the schedule for November. These 3 main liturgical celebrations. Okay, so let's scroll down a bit and take a look. All right, so let's see here. Scrolling. Here we go. Now, here are the 3 main liturgical celebrations for the Pope for the month of November. And you see the very first one. It's November the 4th, which is the day of what? The lunar Samhain. Okay, but let's read a little bit about it. It says, Mass at 11 a.m. in St. Peter's Basilica for the souls of the cardinals and bishops who died during the course of the past year. You cannot make this stuff up. What is Samhain about? What is the festival of Samhain about? It's about, again, celebrating the people that died in the previous year. And it just so happens that the Pope is presiding over a holy mass on a lunar Samhain in honor of the cardinals and bishops that died in the past year. You really can't make this up. Now, am I reaching? Is this just a coincidence? Huh? I'll let you decide. But anyway, let's continue. What's the next day? November the 5th, which is known as what? Pope's Day or Pope's Night. This is one of the 3 main liturgical celebrations in November that the Pope has. Okay, and of course, November the 5th, that's a holy mass that's hosted at 10:30 a.m. at the Sacred Heart Catholic University of Rome. Okay, so the Pope hosted a holy mass on both November the 4th, the lunar Samhain, and November the 5th on Pope's Night, the day of the concert. Okay, let's continue. What's the 3rd day of November that's important for the Pope? November the 14th, another holy mass at 10 a.m. in the St. Peter's Basilica on the occasion of the 5th World Day of the Poor of the Catholic Church. No. There's more to November the 14th. Okay, and we're going to get into that in a minute here. Okay, because that date is important, believe it or not. Okay, now I know a lot of you are dumbfounded right now. And, I was when I first ran into this, okay? But when you look at this from a spiritual vantage point, it makes all the sense in the world because of the role that the Pope actually plays on the left-hand side, okay? The Pope, believe it or not, is a representation of the Roman god known as Janus. Okay, that's the role that the Pope plays on the earth. Okay, he plays Janus. Janus is the so-called god of doors, or the doorway. Okay, he is the pretty much the bridge between the physical world and the spiritual world, the past and the future. Okay, that's the role of Janus. Okay, and that's the role that the Pope plays. Okay, don't believe me? Okay, well, when you get a chance, just simply do a quick Google search and look at Vatican City from an aerial view. And Vatican City is shaped like a keyhole. Okay, from an aerial view. Why? Because the Pope is Janus. That's the role that he plays. He is the doorway for the spiritual world and the physical world. That's the role that the Pope plays. That's why he fits so perfectly in this puzzle. Okay? Also, as another side note, okay, who is the Pope's closest supporters and advisors? Okay, they're known as cardinals. Okay, when you look at the word cardinal, okay, it comes from the Latin word cardo. Okay, and the Latin word cardo means what? It means hinge or hinges. Okay, what are hinges used for? A hinge or hinges are used to support a door. Okay, and the cardinals are the supporters of the Pope. Why? Because the Pope is Janus, the so-called god of the doorways. That's the role that the Pope plays. Okay, he's the bridge between the physical world and the spiritual world. That's the role that he plays on the left-hand side. Okay. And shout out to Chronicles of Judah 144, okay, for the information that he came out with concerning the Pope, okay? When you get a chance, I suggest you subscribe to his channel and check out that 3-video series that he has concerning the Pope, okay? Very informative, all right? So now let's move forward and deal with this November the 14th date and the significance behind it. Okay, so this leads us to our 10th and final victim at the time of this video, okay, which is this young brother here, which is 9-year-old Ezra Blount. Okay, he was the final victim, or at least he was at the time of the recording of this video, okay, that died because of everything that transpired on November the 5th. Okay, but the thing is, he did not die that day. Okay, I believe he died of head trauma. Okay, but it was because of what happened on November the 5th that caused his death. But he died later on. Okay, and what you're gonna find out is he died on, yes, you guessed it, November the 14th. Okay, and it just so happens that everything that took place, of course, was on Pope's night, November the 5th. The young man was 9 years old, and 9 days later, on November the 14th, he dies. Okay, I told you this thing is also revolved around the number 9 as well. Okay. But, again, having said that, of course, the young man's name was Ezra. And as we know, that is a Hebrew name. Okay, it's Hebraic. Okay, and the name Ezra in Hebrew literally means help. Okay, again, from my critique, from my critique, of course, this is an allusion to 911. That's why, unfortunately, this young man's life was taken. Okay, do I believe that something happened to him after the fact? It really could be. Okay. Do I believe that the last two people that died, that their deaths came as a result of something after the concert? It really could be. Okay. But, that's the information on this young man. He died on November the 14th, 9 days later, and he was 9 years old. Okay. Which brings us back to the Pope. Okay. Remember, this young man died on November the 14th. Okay. And that same day, the Pope, he presided over a holy mass. Okay. But that particular holy mass on November the 14th was known as something. Okay. There's a title to it. So let's see what it's called. Okay. So we have here from CatholicReadings.com this article about November the 14th, and it reads, Catholic Sunday Mass readings for November 14th, 2021, 33rd Sunday in Ordinary Time. Year B, Sunday Homily. So what you're going to find out is that this year on November the 14th, within Catholicism, November the 14th is known as the 33rd Sunday in Ordinary Time. Now, as we know, the number 33 represents what? Sacrifice. And it just so happens that this young man, Ezra Blount, he was 9 years old. He was a victim of what happened on November the 5th, and 9 days later, on November the 14th, which is known as what? The 33rd day in Ordinary Time. On that day, this young man dies. And we know the number 33 represents sacrifice. Okay? Now, as I said before, the Pope just so happens to be the devil. Okay? Now let's transition to the 9th victim. Okay? Victim number 9. I told you that this thing is centered around the number 9 as well. Okay? And this is the 9th victim. And her name was Bardi Shahani. Okay? And she just so happened to be 22 years old. Okay, 22, of course, is just a multiple of the number 11. Okay, this thing is centered around the number 9 and the number 11. Okay, in which we know the number 11 and the number 22 are considered master numbers on the left-hand side. Okay, so those two numbers have a high resonance on the left-hand side. Okay. But this young lady, her life was taken, of course, due to the events on November the 5th, Pope's Night. Okay, and she was 22 years old. And when you get a chance, look at the interview her mother had, okay, after her death. Okay, listen, that lady was bugged the hell out of her mind. Okay. Something was just completely off with her. I know her daughter just died, but just sit there and look at her. It almost looked like it was fake crying. There was not a tear coming out of her eyes. Okay, so am I looking sideways at the parents of this young lady and also the father of young Ezra Blount? Yeah. I'm looking at them sideways, okay? I don't put anything past anybody, okay? But again, of course, this is just my critique, okay? So now let's look at some more numbers in the Gemetria Calculator. Okay. So now, of course, we have the Gemetria Calculator, and we've typed in the name Samhain. Okay. And as you see at the bottom left corner, it comes up to a numerical value of 65. And of course, if you look at the English ordinal, 6 plus 5, of course, it equals 11. Okay. And if you look again, the number 6 and the number 5, look at the Astroworld Festival dates. The concert was supposed to take place on November the 5th and November the 6th. Okay, that's the 6 and the 5. Okay, here again, showing us that this thing is centered around the number 11. All right, so moving forward, we have now typed into the Gemetria Calculator Utopia Mountain. Okay, the name of the actual stage was Utopia Mountain. That's why, you know, the whole plot or the scenery was that of a mountain, and they named it Utopia Mountain. And the strange thing is, there's actually a real place called Utopia Mountain. This is an actual mountain that's located in Canada. Go figure, right? But anyway, when you type in Utopia Mountain into the calculator, you see that everything is centered around the number 9. Okay, you have the English ordinal, which is 189, and when you break that down, it comes out to 9, because of course 1 plus 8 equals 9, plus 9 equals 18, and 1 plus 8 is 9. Okay, that's how that comes out to be 9. Okay, then of course you have the full reduction, which is 63. 6 plus 3 is 9. Then you have the reverse ordinal, which again is 189, and we just broke that down to 9. Then you have the reverse full reduction, which is 81. 8 plus 1, of course, is 9. Okay? And since we're on the subject of Utopia Mountain, okay, this is very telling, okay, because okay, we're going to look at the definition of utopia in a minute. But before we do that, let's look at, I want to say this was an actual newspaper article in Houston. Okay. You brothers can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do know that this is about the actual concert. Okay. So let's take a look at this article. Okay. So here is the article, or at least a promotional poster for the concert, right? Now let's deal with the picture first. Let's deal with this creature, okay, which appears to be Bad Boy, right? Now, it's just so funny how everything is, lining up perfectly. Let me bring to your remembrance what I was saying about the Sicko music video for the single Sicko, right? The end of that video, you had Drake and you had Travis Scott standing there as a number 11. And in the middle of them, in the background, you had a black sun, okay? That's a direct correlation to the coronavirus, okay? Now, when the coronavirus first hit, okay, what were they saying was the cause of it? Okay, they said that this virus came from bats, okay, originally, okay? So here again, that music video came out in 2018, okay? And here we are in 2021 with another reference to that, okay? And look at what the article reads. The true dystopia is here. Okay, and we're going to get the definition of dystopia as well. But could this be saying that this particular virus, the quote-unquote coronavirus, was, the start and cause of the dystopia that's here? Okay, or at least that's to come maybe next year in 2022. Here again, this is just my critique. I'm just throwing things out there, okay? But this is why I always say you have to look at everything from a spiritual vantage point. Look at the top right corner of this particular article and look at what it reads. It says, who knows what lies beneath the surface? Now, to me, that's just an indirect way of saying this was planned out. This is scripted. Okay? What lies beneath the surface? Okay? On a surface level, nobody knows what's going on. But beneath the surface, oh yeah, this thing was already scripted. Okay? And let's look at the bottom of the article. Now, this is very spiritual. It reads, when the end arrives, it's really the beginning. Now, whoever wrote this, they may not even understand what they just said. But let me bring to your remembrance a scripture, which is 2nd Esdras, chapter 6 and verse 9, which says what? For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Okay, so now we have here the definition for the word dystopia, because remember what the article said. It said the true dystopia is here, right? So this is the definition for the word dystopia, and it reads, an imagined state or society in which there is great suffering or injustice, typically one that is totalitarian or post-apocalyptic. Now, it's just very fitting that I read that verse, okay? 2nd Ezra 6 and 9, because this sounds a lot like Jacob's trouble to me. Again, this is just my critique, okay? And it's just very interesting that that article said that the true dystopia is here, when the name of the actual stage was what? Utopia Mountain. Now let's get the definition for the word utopia. Here it is, and it reads, an imagined place or state of things in which everything is perfect. So as we see here, a utopia is the complete opposite of a dystopia. Now, why is that? Why is it that the article says that the true dystopia is here, but the name of the stage was Utopia Mountain? Okay. There's an underlining message there, okay? The Utopia Mountain represents what? The attendees of the concert coming there thinking everything is going to be perfect. Everything is going to be just, your regular everyday concert, or your regular everyday Travis Scott concert, so to speak. But then the article said the true dystopia is here, meaning what? You think everything is going to be fine, but guess what? Everything's not going to be fine in this concert. And that's just on a surface level, okay? I think that this whole incident is just a prelude as to what's to come, okay? Just think about it. There was nothing but chaos at that concert, okay? And I believe that that's what we're in for coming next year in 2022. You think it's bad now? I think this concert was a prelude as to what's to come next year. Again, this is my critique. I could be wrong, but from what I'm seeing from this critique, oh yeah, it's coming and it's going to be bad. Okay? But now that we've touched on the definitions of utopia and dystopia. Allow me to bring to your remembrance one of the articles that I posted about the number 11. And I told you we're definitely going to touch on this. Okay, so now I want to go back to that before I end this video series. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, so here's the article about the number 11 that I was speaking of. Okay, now I'm not going to read the whole thing again, but I'm going to get right to the point. Okay, and I'm going to start. Let's see, let's go towards the middle of the article, towards the right where it says the natural impulse. Okay, and it reads, the natural impulse and the numerology meaning of 11 is to try and understand the mystical and the meta. Right there, and the meta. This is the part that I said, oh yeah, we're coming back to this, definitely. Okay, which leads us to what? Another surprise guest. Okay, now some of you may already be familiar with this brother. His name is Orlando Bravo. Okay, now let's get some background about this brother. And it reads, Orlando Bravo, born 1970, is a Puerto Rican billionaire businessman, co-founder and managing partner of Thoma Bravo, a private equity investment firm that specializes in software and technology-enabled services sectors. The 2019 Forbes 400 listed Bravo as the first Puerto Rican-born billionaire, debuting at number 287. And if you go down to the very bottom, his net worth is $6.3 billion. Okay. Now, what does this have to do with anything? What does he have to do with this? Okay. Well, not too long ago, I believe the middle of this month, I believe it was November the 15th, he had an interview with CNBC about metaverse. Y'all, you should have known this was coming. You should have known I was gonna get to this. But yeah, he had an interview about metaverse. Okay, he gave his opinion about it and about how much of a success and how lucrative it would be. Okay, now let's get to that interview and see what it says, because as we know, when we go to the Bible, okay, I believe, I want to say I know it's in Sirach. I want to say chapter 23 and verse 13, starting at verse 13, I believe. It talks about how when a rich man speaks, everybody holds their tongue and they exalt what he says to the clouds. But then the poor man comes along and everybody pretty much questions him. Okay, they want to know his credentials, and they pretty much take what the poor man says and they toss it to the side. Okay, so there's a reason why they asked him about metaverse. Now let's get to the interview and let's see what he said in particular. That's very interesting. Okay, so here is the article about about what he said about metaverse. Okay, and this is the interview, of course, he had with CNBC, and it reads, it's investable and it's going to be very big, Bravo said in an interview with CNBC's Annette Weisbach on Friday. The metaverse is a sci-fi concept whereby humans put on some sort of headset or smart glasses that allows them to live, work, and play in a virtual world much like the one depicted in the Ready Player One novel and movie. Depending on your point of view, it's either a utopian dream or a dystopian nightmare. Pause. Okay. Now, this is very interesting. Now, I do want to clear something up because now reading this, I'm wondering, did Orlando Bravo actually say this, or is this the part that CNBC just added? Okay. But nevertheless, it was said. Okay. And what I'm talking about is the very last part here, where it says it's either a utopian dream or a dystopian nightmare. Very interesting choice of words. Very interesting. Now, which brings us back to Mr. Travis Scott and his concert. Remember, the stage was called Utopia Mountain. But the article or the poster about the concert said what? The true dystopia is here. Okay? And now we have a little more than what is this? November the 15th, I said it was. They're saying that the metaverse is either going to be a utopian dream or a dystopian nightmare. Very interesting. So now let's move on and take a look at the symbol for metaverse. And here it is. Now, would you look at this? The symbol for metaverse is simply what? An infinity sign. Okay, that's all that really is. And the infinity sign is simply what? A number 8 on its side. That's all it is. Okay? Which now brings us back to Travis Scott's concert. Now we know there was a sum total of 10 people that died because of the concert. But there were only 8 people that actually died right then and there at the concert. It was 8 people. Okay? Very, very interesting. Okay? So now, let us rewind back 1 year to 2020. In the year 2020, the Astroworld Festival was canceled, of course, due to the coronavirus, right? So what happened instead? Travis Scott had some type of deal with Fortnite, correct? Where he had a virtual reality concert, which did very, very well, might I add. Okay, he had a virtual reality concert. Okay, could all of this had been a prelude to metaverse? Now, again, this is just my critique. I'm just throwing that out there. Okay, but it's just mighty strange that the symbol for metaverse is the infinity sign, which is just a number 8 on its side. And 8 people died at the concert that night of November the 5th. It's just very, very strange. Okay? Now, in closing, let's deal with the number 22 again, because as we already know, the number 22 played a significant role in this whole thing as well, right? Now, when dealing with numbers, okay, you can get into numbers even on the right-hand side, okay? You can actually get into numbers more so on the right-hand side, because the job of the left-hand side is to mimic the right-hand side, okay? So numbers actually has a greater resonance on the right-hand side rather than the left, okay? So when dealing with the number 22, okay, the number 22 actually represents Hebrew, okay? It represents the Hebrew language, okay, because there are a sum total of 22 characters in the Hebrew language, okay? Now the number 22, just like the number 613, represents Torah, okay? The number 22 represents the laws of the Most High. Now why is that? It's because the law originally was given in Hebrew. It was given in Hebrew, okay? That's why the number 22 represents Hebrew, okay? Now, here's something for the ladies that may be watching, okay? When you deal with the outline of a virtuous woman, okay, which is found in Proverbs chapter 31, okay? The outline of a virtuous woman is summed up in a total of 22 verses, okay? Starting at verse 10 and ending in verse 31. That is a sum total of 22 verses. Why is that? Because a virtuous woman ultimately is a woman that walks in accordance to the laws of the Most High. Okay? But now, to end this whole thing, and again, to show you that you can deal with numbers on the right-hand side as well, let's go all the way to the end of the Bible, okay? To the book of Revelations, which, here we go, has a sum total of 22 chapters. Coincidence? I think not. But anyway, let's go to Revelations 22. And let's go to verse 20, okay? Which, when you read that in the reverse, really is 2022, which is the year that we're going into, okay? So let's see what that verse says. And here it is. And it reads, He which testifieth these things saith, Surely I come quickly. Amen. Even so, come Hamashiach Yahushai. That is very interesting, okay? Again, this is Revelation 22 and verse 20. And as I said before, in the reverse, or as we read in Hebrew from right to left, is 2022, okay? And notice how Yahushua said, surely I come quickly. Now, of course, I'm not saying that 2022 is the year that Yahushua is coming back. I'm not. But we are definitely close. Now, do I believe that the year 2022, that the prophecies are going to speed up even more so than they already have? Yeah, I do. I believe that 100%. Okay? That's why I said earlier, you think it's bad now? Oh boy. Look, 2022, I believe is going to be a doozy. Okay? But, you know, all of this, it was just very interesting to me. Okay? Going into this verse and, you know, Yahushua saying, surely I come quickly. Okay? So, again, we got to prepare ourselves, you know, stay in the spirit, of course, stay in the word, you know, stay prayed up, do everything that you know you're supposed to be doing to prepare yourself for the second coming of Yahushua. Okay? So, with that being said, I believe this is a good place to bring this series to an end. Okay? Again, this was my critique on the Travis Scott situation and everything that happened during the concert on November the 5th. Okay, again, this was just my critique. Again, I could be wrong on some things. Maybe I'm wrong on everything. But this was my critique and how I saw it. Okay, so with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach HaKodesh. I want to thank all of you brothers and sisters for tuning in. And until next time, Shalom, family.